I've introduced to you guys two fine Canadians. I'm about to introduce a third. Next is Peter Bojanic from Seagate. He's a Senior Director of System Software for the Storage Solutions Group at Seagate, where he's responsible for Lustre and other scalable storage software technologies. Peter's leadership in high-performance computing spans more than a decade, with ongoing responsibility for Lustre initiatives dating back to 2005 at Cluster File System. With more than 27 years of IT industry experience, Peter's focus on HPC storage makes him a key contributor to solving the biggest scale challenges in the world. And he's a nice guy. At this opportunity, I want to thank Peter and Seagate for their kind sponsorship of this event. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Peter Bojanic.
Thank you very much, Steve. I have to take. I was talking to some friends earlier. I have to keep taking my glasses off and on because my eyes are getting old, and I need them to see far, but I can't see anything up near with them on. And I'm not willing to go to bifocals quite yet. I'm Peter Bojanic. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And it's not a mistake, or it's not a coincidence that there's so many Canadians that are involved in Lustre. First of all, we are nice, and that always helps to engineer good software. But there's a connection to Canada that goes back to the earliest days of cluster file systems when Dr. Peter Brahm was living in Canmore, Alberta. And so there's a number of people, and there was even other people who were involved in Lustre who aren't necessarily here today, that also are maybe not necessarily from Canada, but live in Canada now. So I'm with Seagate, and I don't have any slides for you today because the message that I've come to deliver was actually a secret up until this morning, and some of you may have even seen the press release. So I've got some very exciting news to share with you, but you're going to have to wait just a moment before I tell you what it is. Maybe you can look it up and find it on Twitter or something like that. But first of all, I just want to tell you a little bit about our credentials. I don't have any marketing slides, but I think that it's worthwhile saying that Seagate is a leading provider of high-performance storage in the industry today. And our premier product, Cluster Store, is based on Lustre. And that, although we have an increasingly diversified portfolio of solutions for high-performance storage, Lustre remains the most strategic technology that we've made the most significant investment in since we started building high-performance storage systems as Xyratex. So the L300 is our newest platform. We announced it at Supercomputing last year. It features the best dollars per gigabyte per second in the entire industry, and features what we were able to do when Xyratex was acquired by Seagate was actually start to innovate down at the drive level. So we went and we talked to the core drive teams, and we said, we actually need hard drives to go faster. Can you make us a really fast HPC drive? And as it turns out, the firmware developers don't really have a lot of people asking them those types of questions, but they were able to actually eke out about double or 50% better streaming performance and about 35% better random I/O performance in what is currently exclusive to Seagate as an HPC drive. Might be available to other vendors later on, but right now we're the only ones who have got it. And that lets us do 16 gigabytes per second in a single scalable storage unit. And in our rack scale configuration, I think it's like 112 gigabytes per second per rack. And we have a solution that's been running at CEA, a pretty big one, more than 200 gigabytes per second and 6 petabytes of storage. That's been running since the beginning of the year, and we've had another successful deployment at DKRZ recently. We're also planning all flash configurations of that platform that you'll see later on this year. L300 is really important and really special for another reason that's tied to the announcement that I'm going to give, but I'm going to still make you wait again a moment before I tell you that. We also introduced this year Spectrum Scale, so we're delivering our parity to clustered grid RAID on our hardware, the same hardware that runs Cluster Store. We're able to do a Spectrum Scale. Spectrum Scale is the file system formerly known as GPFS. And we also announced the A200, which is an important project that we've been working on. Ties to a lot of the discussions that we've been having about Robin Hood and HSM and so forth. A200 is our active archive storage tier, and it features a new object storage engine that we built at Seagate. which is massively scalable and features network erasure encoding. We have taken 8 terabyte SMR drives, shingled magnetic recording. SMR drives are a fraction of the cost of conventional drives, but they behave a little bit differently. And that little bit different causes a lot of storage software, a lot of conventional storage software to have some difficulty with them. But we've been able to masterfully integrate them into our Active Archive platform, and are able to deliver an archive tier that interoperates well with our L300 platform, with prices that actually start to encroach on tape. So that's live storage at close to the price of tape. And so that's the A200. I was also talking to some friends about the last time that I was in Portland. And it was actually in 2009. And 2009 marks a really important kind of turning point for the Lustre community and for Lustre in general. Even though maybe a lot of people didn't know until 6 months or a year later how significant Portland in 2009 was. But in the bars, on the streets, and at dinner tables, and in the halls at supercomputing was all of the discussion about the acquisition of Sun Microsystems by Oracle. And a lot of us worked together. When I joined Cluster File Systems in 2005, Andreas was already there. Eric Barton was already there. A lot of the people that you see here were already there. And then shortly after, Peter Jones and Jessica came on, and we built a more capable management team, and a lot of other developers joined. Robert Reed, who was there before I joined, actually came back after that time. And we had this large Lustre development organization. First at Cluster File Systems, when Sun acquired CFS in 2007, the industry kind of gasped and said, this could be a bad thing. As it turned out, it was actually a pretty good thing. There was a big investment in Lustre. Sun allowed us to advance Lustre 2.0 without a lot of pressure to get it out. The intention was to get it good. And we were able to support all of existing customers, including Sun's competitors. And the HPC world ticked along, and Lustre was still trusted. But in 2009, Oracle decided to acquire, or announced that they were going to acquire Sun, and the world gasped again and wasn't quite as optimistic that we were going to have the same kind of outcome. And so it was in this city in 2009 where the genesis of OpenSFS emerged, right? It was in those discussions that OpenSFS was invented. It was in those discussions that WAM Cloud was the nucleus of WAM Cloud was starting. And it was also in 2009 that Xyratex was seriously considering putting out a Lustre-based platform, and we're in stealth mode, checking out all of the talks and all the vendor booths and so forth. So 2009 was really important. In 2010 is when things really started to change. OpenSFS emerged, WAM Cloud started, and it was at that Lustre users group in the fall that was probably one of the most difficult days of my career. And that's when I had to tell a lot of you, a lot of other people who aren't necessarily here, that Oracle was going to do something very different with Lustre, that it had a very different intention. But the community and the strength of the community, and that involves the vendors and the users and so forth, they already had momentum, and Lustre Lustre had a good stewardship to see it through those rough times. So here we are in 2016, and Lustre is still a really successful file system. At Xyratex, we were the pioneers of deploying Lustre 2.0 in really large scale. Cray was our first OEM. We deployed NCSA, which is still, I think, one of the biggest Lustre file systems out there, even though it's years old. And at Xyratex, we went on a slightly different path than what WAM Cloud was doing, and what some other Lustre vendors were doing. We decided to cultivate and curate our own version of Lustre, and to be perhaps a bit more conservative with the new features that were going into it. And I think that we were largely successful. Our customers have enjoyed really good quality Lustre on our platforms, but the world hasn't been perfect. Nothing ever is. But what our customers were saying was that we We see that there is development happening at Intel. It's great that you're using OpenSFS releases. It's great that you are active contributors to OpenSFS, but there's this confusion about what Seagate is doing versus what Intel was doing, and we'd really, really like for you guys to kind of work together a bit better. And so today, I'm really proud, and it's my privilege to announce that Intel and Seagate have a definitive agreement for Seagate to deliver IEEL, that's Intel's Enterprise Edition for Lustre, on our cluster store platform. And so when I told you about the L300 a little bit earlier, that platform is really important and special. Thank you, that's very encouraging, thank you. That platform is really special because that will be the first platform that features IEEL. In the second half of this year, we're already working together. We're already working with Peter Jones and team to integrate Lustre 2.7 IEEL into our platform. You'll see that on the L300 in the second half of this year. And those customers will enjoy not only having IEEL, but will also benefit from having Intel backing up Seagate, right? Seagate will continue to support our entire platform. We take great pride in being able to be a single throat to choke and to support the entire platform. But with L300 and IEEL, we will be backed up with a level 3 support agreement by the largest Lustre developers in the community, right? So we have Seagate, which has got the second largest investment in Lustre in the world, teamed up now very closely with Intel, and those teams that started to drift apart starting here in Portland in 2009 and in 2010. By the end of 2010, there was hardly anyone doing Lustre at Oracle anymore. We'd all gone off to either Wham Cloud or to Zyratex. So in essence, we're kind of coming together again, and it feels really good, and it really feels really good to be doing it here in Portland, which just turns out to be a really happy kind of coincidence. So, we have these two formidable development teams. When we first embarked at Zyratex on integrating Lustre, we were ambitious to develop a lot of new features. And although we did some of that in the early days, what we found was that we really needed to focus a lot of our energy and a lot of our investment in curating that version of Lustre. And that was, fixing bugs. It was curating bugs from the community tree. And that's where all of our energy went. We've got some really great developers here who are anxious to develop new features, and we know that our customers in the community will benefit from that kind of focus and that kind of energy. So we look forward to teaming up with Intel so that we can better share some of the work of making Lustre continually better by fixing defects, and we look forward to at Seagate implementing new features that might show up on cluster store platforms first or earliest, and then combining those features with IEEL and the rest to the benefit of the rest of the community. So we're confident that this decision and this move will help Seagate customers, it'll benefit Seagate customers, and it will benefit all of the community. It'll benefit Intel. It can only get better from here. And of course, looking at that future roadmap, some of the things that we're really interested in are some of the discussions that we're having here in the halls today. It's about making Lustre faster, doing small IOs better, integrating Flash and doing really fast Lustre tiers using Flash and squeezing as much performance as we can out of the platform. And building on the success that we've started with A200 and with Lustre and becoming and doing more sophisticated orchestration and tiering across all those different types of layers that we can at Seagate integrate and innovate at the media level to the benefit of those integrated solutions. So, to Andreas and Peter Jones and Jessica and Robert and Jay and Fen Yong and I can't remember everyone's name who's here today. It's really our pleasure and our privilege at Seagate to be working closely with you again, and we look forward to doing some really, really cool things with you in the future. Thank you very much.